Beep, beep, morning, beep, 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 beep. Just the news. How are we, good people? Right, after my angry rant over the last few days about WPATH, I was absolutely spitting blood. God, what's wrong with me? We're going to start advertising for the Australian and the New Zealand programme starting in May, which I'm looking forward to. A few people have come forward for the Warrior Teachers. So please do, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, hello all. We're going to do it at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, my time, which I think is around 7, 8 your time, which means hopefully you better fit it in. So become a Warrior Teacher, usual stuff. Please support me on my Substack if you'd like to. Yeah, let's get on with it, shall we? Let's see what we've got for you now. Well, Redux, as you may or may not know, is a small independent journalist organisation run by women, and they produce some really good stuff, really meaty materials. Not everybody would agree with what they say all the time, but then, hey, so what? Since when was that a thing, right? So let's go see what they've got today. Just what's going on, right? So Canada, this is from Canada, so there's a Canadian theme today for you, a Canadian theme. Trans activist who wrote a thesis on girl cock. Who funded that? Who funded a thesis? So what will your thesis be on as you move through the academic halls to your career? Girl cock. Fascinating. Yes, you've got your money. Who wrote thesis on girl cock? BDSM launches trans youth mentorship program, right? A 36-year-old man who wrote a master's thesis on girl cock and BDSM has launched a paid trans youth membership program to connect adolescents with older, experienced transgender adults. What? Now, I've said this before, BDSM's been a thing at the moment, hasn't it? I'm feeling quite tied up by this subject. But it's been a thing, hasn't it? So, you know, BDSM. If somebody practices that, it doesn't make them a risk, right? Okay? All sorts of people practice all sorts of things, right? It doesn't make them a risk. Unless they do something like this, which in my book is a safeguarding issue because they're working with adolescents. For adolescents, they mean children, right? Okay, so, right? What? You know, what's their social media presence like? What have they said in the past? What is their way of thinking? You know? Safeguarding. It's basic safeguarding stuff. What's going on here? Hang on. Excuse me? So it's a paid trans youth mentorship program. On February the 12th, CBC reported that Kat Haynes was starting the program called Into the Streets, specifically to connect trans feminine male youth with trans feminine male adults. Haynes told CBC that within Regina, there's still a big lack of visibility of transgender communities, especially trans women and girls, trans girls. And that the programme would change the constrained view of how trans women should look or act. Haynes is a trans rights activist who lives in Regina, Saskatchewan, and received a master's degree in Women and Gender Studies. This is a bloke. Women and Gender Studies from the University of Regina. In 2021, his thesis was titled Trans Misogyny and the Abjection of Girl Cock. This is pure queer theory, isn't it, folks? Have some queer theory with your breakfast. They've then got a picture. He's doing the picture, right? So they got a picture of him on his personal website. Haynes describes the thesis as a look at how trans women are cast as dangerous and disgusting intruders in brackets cis sexist close brackets feminist and lesbian spaces, theory and media. Yep, you think? Couldn't be because you're a bloke, Haynes, could it? Possibly. Anyway, I will argue throughout this thesis that through the metaphor of girl cock, they literally do spend all their time licking their own bums. Going round in an academic bum-licking competition. It's the academic human centipede. They're all full of shit. I will argue throughout this thesis that through the metaphor of girl cock, trans women are said to be too loud, too angry and too male. To be allowed into feminist and lesbian spaces. It's just the fact that you're too male, I think, would be the problem. Haynes writes in the introduction, this notion of too much extends to our bodies as well, with the potential of our girl cocks being too much flesh from any cis lesbian and feminist spaces. Do you see how mental they are? You can see how the craziness of this idea, this ideology. An entire chapter of the thesis is also devoted to a lengthy discussion of the pornographic film, The Training of Poe. Haynes argues that the film's portrayal of a BDSM dominant submissive relationship is an example of media that sublimes a trans woman's body and sexuality. This is all insanity. You know? They're on their own bus and they're licking the windows. Just an awful thing to say, but I can't help myself. There are shots that allow for the fullness of posed sexuality to exist, such as shots of a girl cock dripping with pre-cum, Haynes praises. Throughout the chapter, he proposed a framework of BDSM and willful submission to help us understand the process of material re-embodiment. This is what is he? Is he channeling Judith Butler? She's behind the curtain going, now say this. To help us understand the process of material re-embodiment, and expresses his own personal belief of tremendous power in exploring and enacting dominant submissive style relationships. No, none of this. Butler whispered in his ear. Haynes also discusses the film's frequent reference to the submissive as a slave, and writes to invoke the term slave within the context of BDSM is to invoke a history of violence, subjugation and forced labour, which may be desirable with desirable elements within the scene. Yes, right, that's what it's about, isn't it? He finds the term slave problematic for its connections to American slavery, but he does not find violence, subjugation and forced labour to be problematic within a BDSM dominant submissive relationship. Okay, so, he's about BDSM, that's all, all well and good. Haynes describes himself as both an academic and an artist. Here we go, it's the artists are out again. Next thing you know, be pissed all over himself or something, wouldn't it, eh? He says he is both an academic and an artist with a focus on the intersection of his identities as a dyke and a trans woman. He's delusional epic, entitled I'm a Knob. In 2020, he wrote a short zine called The Lesbian Body, as an update to a 1973 work by the same name, and a challenge to the idea that the lesbian body is limited to the cisgender dyadic female body. Say dyadic. All right, Judith, I've got it. Using graphic and often gory language in the style of the original text, Haynes expresses his frustration at being denied by trans misogynistic lesbians. This is rape culture. And describes a male body as a lesbian body. Right? Right. Next, Judith whispers in his ears, the women lose loose your dogs on me. When I approach, he writes, everything is denied me, even the right of asylum. Well, I wouldn't deny you that right. Hello, is that Arkham Asylum? We've got a real one here. In the next panel, he continues, I begin to sing as you sink your teeth into the flesh of my cock, my most beautiful one, my most feared one. This is mental illness writ large. And then there's a great example of some of this. You have to read this. I'm not reading all this out. I'm definitely not reading all this. It's all about blood and saliva and holes. No, I'm not doing it. Right? Okay. So he goes on to discuss his residency at Ender College, Ender Gallery. Ender? Rear Ender. An exhibition space inside the game Minecraft. People go and visit him in virtual reality, where he had a digital art installation that he described as a monumental reconstructions of my surgically reconstructed genitals. It's surgically destroyed genitals. Haynes then details the outcomes of his surgery while speculating on his surgeon's possible sexual motives for how it turned out. Yeah, but this isn't a fetish, is it, folks? Oh, shit. Help me. I was always expected to be given a vulva lookbook, but instead my genitals were reconstructed towards a platonic ideal, a cisgender man's fantasy of what a vulva and a vagina should look like. Deep, tight and tidy. This is insane, right? Deep, tight and tidy. A DTT. Do you have a DTT? I do, yes. He's saying he's a better woman than women. That's what he's saying. Did my surgeon imagine how it would feel for his own cock to penetrate my soon-to-be vagina? You don't have a vagina, mate. You just go. When he told me to get naked and somewhat flippantly informed me that I had more than enough material for a successful surgery. Did he wonder whether my would be deep and large enough to fit not just any and every cock, but specifically his own? And then there's a picture of him with his bits dangling on a bed somewhere in a bedsit by the look of it. It's extraordinary, isn't it? It's just extraordinary. Today, Haynes continues his efforts to connect with young people and have them follow in his footsteps through his Into the Streets mentorship program. My hope is that it will jumpstart a new generation of activists who are keen and eager to do the work. The work in this case being constructing a gallery in cyberspace in which he discusses his need to dominate women and his need to dominate lesbians in particular, and his journey from being a fully functioning male to a dysfunctional male with a genitalia that's been mutilated by a surgeon. Applications to be a mentor for Into the Streets are open until the end of February. The plan is for the youth and their mentors to participate in one-on-one and group activities, as well as a series of projects during Trans Pride 2023 in June. And mentors will receive a $200 sponsorship for their Pride project and a £1,000 stipend for taking part in the programme. Into the Streets is being supported both administratively and financially by UR Pride Centre for Sexuality and Gender Diversity and Ivy Dean Consulting, a 100% queer-owned consulting firm in Regina. Make of it what you will. All the bits are in the doobries. I'll see you soon.